All right, greetings everyone. Hope you're doing well. So, in conjunction with our readings this week on deontology and Kant, I wanted to introduce another idea of kind of a duty-based orientation to life. Called Stoicism. Many of you have heard of it. I thought we would just go to a nice Google search. What is Stoicism? AI gives us Stoicism is a philosophy that originated in ancient Greece and Rome that emphasizes living a good life through virtue. It includes a set of values, a worldview, and a methodology for living. So, not to get caught up in the weeds, Stoicism, well, we'll give two more. These are a little better. As many of you probably know it, like Stoicism kind of means the endurance of pain or hardship without display of feeling and without complaint. So if you call someone stoic, they kind of just like grit their way through life. They don't complain much. They're not overly emotional or expressive. But the ancient school of Stoicism, taught that virtue, the highest good, is based on knowledge. The wise live in harmony with the divine reason that governs nature and are indifferent to the vicissitudes of fortune and to pleasure and pain. And so, really, the ancient Stoics thought that humans are rational. We are capable of reasoning, and that the world, the universe, was rational. Stoics actually believed in like a higher power and thought that the only reason we suffer, right, all of us in our life, is because we don't align our thinking with the way the world actually is, right? That if we actually bent our reason to follow the natural reason of the universe, that nothing would perturb us, nothing would bother us. We'd be, without complaint, living like swimming in the current. And I truly think this is a beautiful idea, and we kind of saw that just recently with the life of Cato. So one sec, I'm getting a little interference from some youngins. Oh, children are precious. But one of the cool things about Stoicism is that one of the most famous Stoics that we have, one of the first was Seneca, who was maybe I'll include Seneca's letters, and you can just peruse. I mean, truly a great thinker and very lucid and articulate with his words, even in translation. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor, you may or may not know, and he was a diehard Stoic. He was the most powerful, richest man in the whole world, and he told you that riches and power will not make you happy, and the people who will surround around you for those things aren't worth having around you. But Stoicism is a philosophy that applies whether you're a slave, as we're going to see Epictetus, who I'm going to show you some excerpts of. He had been a slave until he won his freedom, or an emperor, anywhere in between. And in truth, if I were like making a comparison, Stoicism has a lot in common with Buddhism. If you know any of the practices of Buddhism, kind of not avoiding things, not going toward things, not clinging, right? There's a lot of that in this. So, I'll take you to the Enchiridion by Epictetus, and just bear with me as I try to pluck some of the gems from this. Number one, some things are in our control and others are not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. So here's an interesting thing. Do we even agree with this claim? He says some things are in our control and other things aren't. What's in your control? Your opinion, your desire, your aversion, whatever you choose to do. Some people might agree with that. Some people would say we don't actually get to choose our desires or our aversions, right? We just are drawn toward things, and I'm sure there are some cigarette smokers out there who wish that they did not have a desire for cigarettes. I think Epictetus would say, hey, that's in your control. You don't have to smoke the cigarette, right? I know you got withdrawal. It's the same thing, and I'll make an edgy claim here. We like to think that maybe addictions are diseases, right? If you're addicted to alcohol or cigarettes, it's like, well, it's not a disease like cancer, right? Because if I gave you $1 billion to not smoke or drink for a week, you could do it. For $1 billion, you could fucking do it, right? Pardon my French. But I can't like say, go without cancer for a week and I'll give you $1 billion, right? That's not in your control. And of course, if you can go a week, you can go a month. Yeah. Things not in our control are body, reputation, property, command, and whatever are not our own actions. And you might even not agree with this, right? How is your body not in your control? Well, if you're taken prisoner, your body's not in your control. If you have a sickness, right? Or does anyone remember how miserable puberty was? Just your body changing. I'm sure not all your body was in control. You were in control of your body then, yeah. And so he's really pointing out, like, there are things in our control and there are things not in our control. And knowing the difference is the difference between happiness and misery, yeah. The things in our control are by nature free, unrestrained, unhindered, but those not in our control are weak, slavish, restrained, belonging to others. Remember then that if you suppose that things which are slavish by nature are also free, and that what belongs to others is your own, then you will be hindered. You will lament, you will be disturbed, and you will find fault both with gods and men. But if you suppose that only to be your own which is your own, and what belongs to others such as it really is, then no one will ever compel you or restrain you. Further, you will find fault with no one or accuse no one. You will do nothing against your will. No one will hurt you. You will have no enemies, and you will not be harmed. So, what's he saying here? So, what Epictetus is saying here is that if you get clear on the fact that your body is not in your control, your ability to command others and get them to do anything is not in your control, then no one can hurt you, no one can infect you. You're free. And I'll try to even include this great poem by the prisoner of Chillon, where this person, even in prison, realizes he's free in his mind. Viktor Frankl kind of had the same realization, the Holocaust survivor. But, you know, if you think that you have control over another person, well, just wait till they say no to you, right? And watch yourself, you just react, yeah? Okay, so what else do I want to say? Aiming, therefore, at such great things, remember that you must not allow yourself to be carried, even with a slight tendency, toward the attainment of lesser things. Instead, you must entirely quit some things and for the present postpone the rest. But if you would both have these great things along with power and riches, then you will not gain even the latter, because you aim at the former too. But you will absolutely fail of the former. By alone, happiness and freedom are achieved. So if this sounds abstract, just think about Cato, yeah? Like, Cato really dedicated his life towards trying to be a good public servant, cleaving to his principles, he helped others. I mean, he was a true public servant, but he didn't aim at riches. He didn't aim at power or influence. He was not good with women. You know, he helped them, but he was so divorced for it. Yet, you know, he would say he had a sort of happiness that was like unparalleled. Yeah. So, I mean, I urge you to compare some of this to our readings we just recently had. Remember that following desire promises the attainment of that which you are desirous, and aversion promises the avoiding of that to which you are adverse. However, he who fails to obtain the object of his desire is disappointed, and he who incurs the object of his aversion wretched. If then you confine your aversion to those objects only which are contrary to the natural use of your facilities, which you have in your own control, you will never incur anything to which you are adverse. But if you are adverse to sickness or death or poverty, you will be wretched. Why does he say that? Aren't we all adverse to sickness, death, poverty? Who here wants to be sick, die, or be poor, right? But he's saying those things aren't in your control. You're going to get sick through no fault of your own. Someday you will die. And even if you do everything right, you could lose your wealth. It could be stolen from you through no fault of your own. And that would make most of us very wretched and unhappy, right? But if you go back to the beginning, right? In truth, this is the serenity prayer. I usually wrap with that, but God grant me the strength to control the things in my control, the serenity to accept the things not in my control, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah? This is serenity prayer writ, large. And so if you really get clear on the fact that you will get old, you will get sick, you will die, People can ruin your reputation even if you don't do anything wrong. If you attach your identity into your desire to those things that aren't in your control, then you will be miserable, right? But if you can stay aloof and align your thinking with the way the world actually is, then no one can hurt you. I mean, I know this is very idealistic, perhaps, or philosophically out on a string. Like, who lives this life, right? We all get pissed off if we get sick or someone slanders us or we make a mistake or we try to get our kids or somebody else to do something for us, a coworker, a boss, an underling, and they don't, or they don't do it the way we want. We'll get really upset. And Epictetus is saying we only get upset. Excuse me. We only get upset because we don't have our thinking aligned with the way the world actually is. Like when you get on the belt line at 4 p.m., if you go in the wrong direction, you know what I'm saying? And you're just irritated with the way traffic is because it's just a snail's pace. Well, he's saying that's only because you didn't align your thinking with the way it was going to be. If you told yourself when you got on, hey, I'm getting on at 4 o'clock, or I'm going to shop at Woodman's the day before Thanksgiving, right? It's going to be a hot mess. And so I should expect it to be a hot mess. Just that preparation in your mind to expecting the way things to be the way they are. Don't wish for things to be the way you want them to be. Wish for things to be the way they are, and you'll get on well in the world. Yeah. Just that little preparation of thinking allows you to avoid so much discomfort, he says, and I would second that. So, with regard to whatever objects give you delight, are useful, or are deeply loved, remember to tell yourself of what general nature they are, beginning from the most insignificant things. If, for example, you are fond of a specific ceramic cup, remind yourself that it is only ceramic cups in general of which you are fond. Then, if it breaks, you will not be disturbed. If you kiss your child or your wife, say that you only kiss things which are human, and thus you will not be disturbed if either of them dies. Full stop. What? Yeah, this is the extreme of what he's pushing. He's saying, hey, if you can get your thinking to realize all cups break eventually, right? And so if yours breaks, if you hear that your best friend broke their favorite cereal bowl, would you even have a flicker of emotion? You'd be like, oh, sorry, dude. But if you broke your favorite cereal bowl, you'd flip out, right? Be like, golly. And he's saying you just have to universalize. Everything that happens to you happens to everybody. But then he's like, same thing's going to happen with your child or your wife, right? Don't get too attached to them. I mean, we know that people die every day. And the more you can realize that that might happen to you and your loved ones, the more, if it does happen, you'll be less disturbed. Now, most of you probably have a gut reaction that says, well, this is pretty vile, right? Why would I ever push a philosophy or a theory that tells me I shouldn't feel strongly if I lose a loved one? Well, I think there's both sides of that. I mean, Buddhism struggles with the same thing, right? There's a way to experience it and not to hold to it, right? All suffering comes from attachment or clinging, yeah? And so, we'll go on. When you're going about any action, remind yourself what nature the action is. If you're going to bath, picture to yourself the things which usually happen in the bath. Some people splash, some push, some use abusive language, and others steal. Thus you will more safely go about this action if you say to yourself, I will now go bath, and keep my mind in a state conformable to nature, and in the same manner with regard to every other thing. For thus, if any hindrance arises in bathing, you will have it ready to say, it is not only to bathe that I desired, but to keep my mind in a state conformable to nature, and I will not keep it if I am bothered at things that happen. Oh my God, everybody, please clock that. It's not that I just go to bath. It's that I go to bath and keep my mind in a state of conformity with nature, so I will not be disturbed. Every time you have to have an unpleasant talk with a coworker or a boss, or drive in traffic, or go shopping, or do paperwork, right? I want to do this, and I want to do it in a state of conformity with nature, so I will not be disturbed, right? The more you align your thinking and expectations with what's likely to happen, the more you'll be prepared and at peace for it. Yeah.